not want to listen to this too much. But bring a little bit closer just so you can hear me a little bit better, I think. The microphone. Now you can hot chocolate. You're tasting chocolate. Delicious. Okay, shaft right behind the fountain. That for 6,000 years, and no one knows how many millions of ages before, the great whales should have been spouting all over the sea and sprinkling and mystifying the gardens of the deep. As with so many sprinkling or mystifying pots, and that for some centuries back, thousands of hunters should have been close by the fountain of the whale, watching these sprinklings and spoutings. That all this should be, and yet, that down to this blessed minute, 15 and a quarter minutes past 1 o'clock p.m. of this 16th day of December AD 1851, it should still remain a problem whether these spoutings are, after all, really water or nothing but vapour. This is surely a noteworthy thing. Gee, it's a compliment. It is. Let us then look at this matter, along with some interesting items contingent. Everyone knows that by the peculiar cunning of their gills, the finny tribes in general breathe the air with at all times combined with the element in which they swim. Hence, a herring or a cod might live a century and never once raise its head above the surface. But owing to its marked internal structure, which gives him regular lungs like a human being's, a whale can only live by inhaling the disengaged air in the open atmosphere. Wherefore the necessary of his periodical visits to the upper world. But he cannot in any degree breathe through his mouth, for in his ordinary attitude the sperm whale's mouth is buried at least 8 feet beneath the surface, and what is still more, his windpipe has no connection with his mouth. No, he breathes through the spiracle alone, and this is on the top of his head. If I say that in any creature breathing is only a function of the indispensable to vitality, insomuch as it withdraws from the air a certain element, which being subsequently brought into contact with the blood imparts to the blood its vivifying principle, I do not think I shall err, though I may possibly use some superfluous scientific words. Assume it, and it follows that if all the blood in a man could be aerated with one breath, then he might then seal up his nostrils and not fetch another for a considerable time. That is to say, he would probably then live without breathing. Anomalous as it may seem, this is precisely the case with the whale, who systematically lives by intervals his full hour and more, when at the bottom, without drawing a single breath, or so much as in any way inhaling a particle of air. For remember, he has no gills. How is this? Between his ribs, and on each side of his spine, he is supplied with a remarkable involved Cretan labyrinth of vermicelli-like vessels, which vessels, when he quits the surface, are completely distended with oxygenated blood. So that for an hour or more, 1,000 fathoms in the sea, he carries a surplus stock of vitality in him, just as the camel crossing the waterless desert carries a surplus supply of drink for future use in its 4 supplementary stomachs. The anatomical fact of this labyrinth is indisputable, and that the supposition found upon it as reasonable and true seems the more cogent to me when I consider the otherwise inexplicable obstinacy of that Leviathan in having his spoutings out, as the fishermen phrase it. This is what I mean. If unmolested, upon rising to the surface, the sperm whale will continue there for a period of time exactly uniform with all his other unmolested risings. Say he stays 11 minutes and jets 70 times, that is, respires 70 breaths. Then whenever he rises again, he will sure to have his 70 breaths over again to a minute. Now, if after he fetches a few breaths you alarm him so that he sounds, he will always be dodging up again to make good his regular allowance of air, and not till those 70 breaths are told will he finally go down to stay at his full turn below. Remark, however, that in different individuals these rates are different, but in any one they are alike. Now, why should the whale thus insist upon having his spoutings out unless it be to replenish his reservoir of air descending for good? How obvious is it too that this necessity for the whale's rising exposes him to all the fatal hazards of the chase? For not by hook or by net could this vast leviathan be caught when sailing 1,000 fathoms beneath the sunlight. Not so much thy skill then, O hunter, as the great necessities that strike the victory to thee. If I say that in any creature breathing is only a function of the indispensable to vitality, I read that. In man, next page. In man, breathing is incessantly going on, one breath only serving for 2 or 3 pulsations, so that whatever other business he has to attend to, waking or sleeping, breathe he must, or die he will. But the sperm whale only breathes about 1/7 of Sunday in his time. 1/7 on Sunday in his time. It has been said that the whale only breathes through his spout hole. If it could truthfully be added that his spouts are mixed with water, then I opine we should be furnished with the reason why his sense of smell seems obliterated in him. For the only thing about him that all answers to his nose is that identical spout hole, and being so clogged with 2 elements, it cannot be expected to have the power of smelling. But owing to the mystery of the spout, whether it be water or whether it be vapour, no absolute certainty can as yet be arrived as on this head. Sure it is, nevertheless, that the sperm whale has no proper olfactories. But what does he want of them? No roses, no violets, no cologne water in the sea. Furthermore, as his windpipe slowly opens into the tube of his spouting canal, and as that long canal, like the Grand Erie Canal, is furnished with a sort of locks that open and shut, and for downward retention of air or the upward exclusion of water, therefore the whale has no voice, unless you insult him by saying that when he so strangely rumbles, he talks through his nose. But then again, what has the whale to say? Seldom have I known any profound being that had anything to say to this world, unless forced to stammer out something by way of getting a living. Oh, happy that the world is such an excellent listener. Now, the spouting canal of the sperm whale, chiefly intended as it is for the conveyance of air, and for several feet laid along horizontally just beneath the upper surface of his head, and a little to one side, this curious canal is very much like a gas pipe laid down in a city on one side of a street. But with the question returns whether this gas pipe is also a water pipe. In other words, whether the spout of the sperm whale is the mere vapour of the exhaled breath, or whether that exhaled breath is mixed with water taken into the mouth and discharged through the spiracle. It is certain that the mouth indirectly communicates with the spouting canal, but it cannot be proved that this is for the purpose of discharging water through the spiracle. Because the greatest necessity for doing so would seem to be when in feeding he accidentally takes in water. But the sperm whale's food is far beneath the surface, and there he cannot spout even if he would. Besides, if you regard him very closely and time him with your watch, you will find that when unmolested there is an undeviating rhythm between the periods of his jets and the ordinary power of respiration. But why pester one with all this reasoning on the subject? Speak out. You have seen him spout, then declare what the spout is. Can you not tell water from air? My dear sir, in this world it is not so easy to settle these plain things. I have ever found your plain things the naughtiest of all. And as for this whale spout, you might almost stand in it and yet be undecided as to what it is precisely. The central body of it is hidden in the snowy, sparkling mist enveloping it, and how can you certainly tell whether any water falls from it, when always, when you are close enough to a whale to get a close view of his spout, he is a prodigious commotion, the water cascading all around him. And if at such times you should think that you really perceive drops of moisture in the spout, how do you know that they are not merely condensed from its vapour? Or how do you know that these are not identical drops superficially lodged in the spout hole fissure, which is countersunk into the summit of the whale's head? For even when tranquilly swimming through the midday sea in a calm, with his elevated hump sun-dried as a dromedary's in the desert, even then the whale always carries a small basin of water on his head, as under a blazing sun you will sometimes see a cavity in a rock filled up with rain. nor is it at all prudent for the hunter to be over-curious touching the precise nature of the whale spout. It will not do for him to be peering into it and putting his face in it. You cannot go with your pitcher to the fountain, fill it and bring it away, and even when coming into slight contact with the outer, vapoury shreds of the jet, which will often happen, your skin will feverishly smart from the acridness of the thing so touching it. And I know one who, coming into still closer contact with the spout, whether with some scientific object in view or otherwise, I cannot say, the skin peeled off him from his cheek and arm. Wherefore, among whalemen, the spout is deemed poisonous. They try to evade it. Another thing I have heard it said, and I do not much doubt it, that if the jet is fairly spouted into your eyes, it will blind you. The wisest thing the investigator can do then, it seems to me, is to let this deadly spout alone. Still, we can hypothesize, even if we cannot prove and establish. My hypothesis is this, that the spout is nothing but mist, and besides other reasons to this conclusion, I am impelled by considerations touching the great inherent dignity and sublimity of the sperm whale. I account him no common shallow being, insomuch as it is an undisputed fact that he is never found on soundings or near shores. All other whales sometimes are. He is both ponderous and profound, and I am convinced that from the heads of all ponderous profound beings, such as Plato, Pyrrho, the devil, Jupiter, Dante, and so on, there always goes up in certain semi-visible steam, while in the act of thinking deep thoughts. While composing a little treatise on eternity, I had the curiosity to place a mirror before me, and ere long saw reflected there a curious involved worming and undulation in the atmosphere over my head. The invariable moisture of my hair while plunged in deep thought, after 6 cups of hot tea in my thin shingled attic of an August noon, this seems an additional argument for the above supposition. Do you believe that? I see no vapour about my head. And how nobly it raises our conceit of the mighty, misty monster to behold him solemnly sailing through a calm tropical sea, his vast mile head overhung by a canopy of vapour, engendered by his incommunicable contemplations, and that vapour, as you will sometimes see it, glorified by a rainbow, as if heaven itself had put its seal upon the thoughts. For you see, rainbows do not visit the clear air, they only irradiate in vapour. And so, through all the thick mists of the dim doubts in my mind, divine intuitions now and then shoot, enkindling my fog with a heavenly ray. And for this I thank God, for all have doubts, many deny, but doubts or denials, few along with them have intuitions. Doubts of all things earthly and intuitions of some things heavenly. This combination makes neither believer nor infidel, but makes a man who regards them both with equal eye. That was a good paragraph, wasn't it? That was a really well written little paragraph, that last one. Excellent imagery. And the alliteration in some of it as well. Yes, incommunicable contemplations. Solemnly sailing through a calm tropical sea. All have doubts, many deny, but doubts or denials, few along with them have intuitions. Yeah, very well read, very well written, I should say. Piece of prose. Right, I think, shall we have, yeah, we'll have the next chapter as well, 86. I think we've got time for that. Let's have a lovely cup of hot chocolate. The waiter who was up here having his lunch has gone downstairs now. Only 10 minutes or something. Chapter 86, The Tail. That's T-A-I-L. Other poets have warbled the praises of the soft eye of the antelope and the lovely plumage of the bird that never alights. Less celestial, I celebrate a tail. Reckoning the largest size sperm whale's tail to begin at that point of the trunk where it tapers to about the girth of a man, it comprises upon its upper surface alone an area of at least 50 square feet. The compact, round body of its root expands into two broad, firm, flat palms or flukes, gradually shoaling away to less than an inch of thickness. At the crotch or junction, these flukes slightly overlap, then sideways recede from each other like wings, leaving a wide vacancy between. In no living things are the lines of beauty more exquisitely defined than in the crescentic borders of these flukes. At its utmost expansion in the full-grown whale, the tail will considerably exceed 20 feet across. The entire member seems a dense webbed bed of welded sinews, but cut into it and you will find that three distinct strata compose it: the upper, middle, and lower. The fibres in the upper and lower layers are long and horizontal, those of the middle one very short, and running crosswise between the outside layers. This triune structure, as much as anything else, imparts power to the tail. To the student of old Roman walls, the middle layer will furnish a curious parallel to a thin course of tiles, always alternating with the stone and those wonderful relics of this antique, and which undoubtedly contribute so much to the great strength of the masonry. But, as if this vast local power in the tendonous tail were not enough, the whole bulk of the Leviathan is knit over with a warmth and woof of muscular fibres and filaments, which, passing on either side of the loins and running down to the flukes, insensibly blend with them and largely contribute to their might, so that in the tail of the confluent, measureless force of the whole whale seem concentrated to a point. Could annihilation occur to matter, this were the thing to do it. Nor does this, its amazing strength, at all tend to cripple the graceful flexion of the motions, where infantileness of ease undulates through a titanism of power. On the contrary, those motions derive their most appalling beauty from it. Real strength never impairs beauty or harmony, but it often bestows it, and in everything imposingly beautiful, strength has much to do with the magic. Take away the tied tendons that overall seem bursting from the marble as the carved Hercules, in the carved Hercules, and its charm would be gone. As devout Eckermann lifted the sheet linen sheet from the naked corpse of Goethe, he was overwhelmed with the massive chest of the man that seemed as a Roman triumphal arch. When Angelo paints even God the Father in human form, mark what robustness is there. And whatever they may reveal of the divine love of the Son, the soft curled hermaphroditical Italian pictures in which his idea has been most successfully embodied, these pictures, so destitute as they are of all brawniness, hint nothing of any power, but the mere negative feminine one of submission and endurance, which, on all hands, it is conceded, form the peculiar practical virtues of his teachings. Such is the subtle elasticity of the organ I treat of, that whether wielded in sport or in earnest or in anger, whatever be the mood it be in, his flexions are invariably marked by exceeding grace. Therein no fairy's arm can transcend it. 5 great motions are peculiar to it. First, when used as a fin for progression. Second, when used as a mace in battle. Third, in sweeping. Fourth, in lobtailing. Fifth, in peaking flukes. First, being horizontal in its position, a leviathan's tail acts in a different manner from the tails of all other sea creatures. It never wriggles. In man or fish, wriggling is a sign of inferiority. To the whale, his tail is the sole means of propulsion. Scroll-wise, coiled forwards beneath the body and then rapidly sprung backwards. It is this which gives the singular darting, leaping motion to the monster when it is swimming furiously. His side fins only serve to steer by. Second, it is little significant that while one sperm whale only fights another sperm whale with his head and jaw, nevertheless, in his conflicts with man, he chiefly and contemptuously uses his tail. In striking at a boat, he swiftly curves away his flukes from it, and the blow is only inflicted by the recoil. If it be made in an unobstructed air, especially if it descends to its mark, the stroke is then simply irresistible. No ribs of man or boat can withstand it. Your only salvation lies in eluding it. But if it comes sideways through the opposing water, then partly owing to the light buoyancy of the whale boat and the elasticity of its materials, a cracked rib or a dashed plank or two, a sort of stitch in the side, is generally the most serious result. These submerged side blows are so often received in the fishery that they are accounted mere child's play. Someone strips off a frock and the whole is stopped. almost looks like a 19th century cup, doesn't it? And it goes with the book. Third, I can't demonstrate it, but it seems to me that in the whale their sense of touch is concentrated in the tail, for in this respect there is a delicacy in it only equalled by the daintiness of the elephant's trunk. This delicacy is chiefly evinced by the actual sweeping, when in maidenly gentleness of the whale with a certain soft slowness moves his immense flukes from side to side upon the surface of the sea, and if he feel but a sailor's whisker, woe to that sailor, take what a sailor, whiskers and all. What tenderness there is in this preliminary touch! Had this tale any prehensile power, I should straightway bethink me of Damarondes' elephant, that so frequented the flower market, with his low salutations presented nosegays to damsels, and then caressed their zones. On more accounts than one, a pity it is that the whale does not possess this prehensile virtue in his tail, for I have heard of yet another elephant, that when wounded in the fight, curved round his trunk and extracted the dart. Fourth, stealing unawares of the whale in the fancied security of the middle solitary seas, you will find him unbent from the vast corpulence of his dignity, and kitten-like he plays on the ocean as if it were a hearth. But still you see the power in his play. The broad palms of his tail are flirted high into the air, then smiting the surface, the thunderous concussion resounds for miles. You would almost think a great gun had been discharged, and if you noticed this light wreath of vapour from the spiracle at his other extremity, you would think that was the smoke from the touch-hole. Fifth, as in the ordinary floating posture of the Leviathan, the flukes lie considerably below the level of his back. They are then completely out of sight beneath the surface, but when he is about to plunge into the deeps, his entire flukes, with at least 30 feet of his body, are tossed erect in the air, and so remain vibrating a moment, till they downward shoot out of view. Excepting the sublime reach, somewhere else to be described, this peaking of the whale's flukes is perhaps the grandest sight to be seen in all animated nature. One of the bottomless profundities, out of the bottomless profundities, the gigantic tail seems spasmodically snatching at the highest heaven. So in dreams have I seen majestic Satan thrusting forth his tormented colossal claw from the flame Baltic of hell. But in gazing at such scenes, it is all in all what good you're in, if in the Dantean the devils will occur to you, if in that of Isaiah the archangels. Standing at the masthead of my ship during a sunrise that crimsoned sea and sky, I once saw a large herd of whales in the east, all heading towards the sun, and for a moment vibrating in concert with peaked flukes, as it seemed to me at the time, with such a grand embodiment of adoration of the gods was never beheld, even in Persia, the home of the fire worshippers. As Ptolemy Philopater testified of the African elephant, I then testified of the whale, pronouncing the most devout of all beings. For according to King Juba, the military elephants of antiquity often hailed the morning with their trunks uplifting in the profoundest silence. The chance comparison in this chapter between the whale and the elephant, so far as some aspects of the tail of the one and the trunk of the other are concerned, should not tend to place these two opposite organs on equality, much less the creatures to which they respectively belong. For as the mightiest elephant is but a terrier to Leviathan, so compared with Leviathan's tail, his trunk is but the stalk of a lily. The most direful blow from the elephant's trunk were as the playful tip of the fan, compared with the measureless crash of the sperm whale's ponderous flukes, which in repeated instances have one after the other hurled entire boats with all their oars and crews into the air, very much as an Indian juggler tosses his balls. The more I consider this mighty tale, the more I do deplore my inability to express it. At times there are gestures in it which, though they would well grace the hand of a man, remain wholly inexplicable. And an extensive herd so remarkable occasionally as these mystic gestures that I have heard hunters who have declared them akin to Freemason signs and symbols, that the whale indeed by these methods intelligently conversed with the world. Nor are there wanting other emotions of this whale in his general body full of strangeness and unaccountable to his most experienced assailant. Dissect him how I may then, but I go skin deep, I know him not and never will. But if I know not even the tail of this whale, how understand his head? Much more how comprehend his face when face he has none. Much more, yeah. Thou shalt I see my back parts, my tail, he seems to say, but my face shall not be seen. But I cannot completely make out his back parts, and hint that what I will about his face. I say again, he has no face. Right, next chapter. Chapter 87, The Grand Armada. Seems to be quite a long one. Yeah, so a long one. Next. So we'll do that one next week. Yes, I'll do that one next week. So that fountain wasn't about fountains of blood after all, as I feared it might be. It's about a fountain emitting from his head. But there's quite a lot of blood and stuff recently in the book. So how far through are we? Maybe 3/4 of the way now. 3/4 of the way. 3/4 of the way through. Might be. Still really enjoying it. I do think it's very well done. Really enjoying it. Hope you are too. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. You can comment after we're live. That's absolutely fine. If you're watching on replay on Haps, you can even send the awards on replay, as you can with anybody else, of course. Yeah, I'll see you next week for the next chapter of Moby Dick, and then next Monday, so not this coming Monday, but next Monday, we'll be doing my Monday night book club, which at the moment is the Midnight Library. So I won't read the whole thing, I'll read extracts of it, because it's within copyright. Moby Dick is out of copyright, of course, so I can read the whole thing. But Midnight Library, if you get that read soon, it's not difficult to read. You can read it in a week and a half. It's not difficult. Yeah, read that, and we'll discuss it on Monday the 25th, I think it is. Last Monday of the month, anyway, and we do a different book each month. So yeah, I might see you for that. So next week, more Moby Dick. Next Monday, the Midnight Library, and tonight it's Full Box Quiz. So thanks for watching. See you for all that. See you next time, everybody. Enjoy your dick.